dream, I'm just suddenly a woman. And I'm not talking like Dane with tits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking Dane in drag. I'm not talking gender dysphoria like I feel like a woman trapped in a man's body. It's like a Freaky Friday deal. It's just my mind in a woman's body. But unlike the movies where you're going around trying to convince everyone this is you, like everyone automatically knew it was me. No one questioned it. And in the dream, my wife is very angry at me because she thinks I've done this on purpose and she's not a lesbian. And for some reason, you were present in the dream.
Oh, that's great.
And you were very uncomfortable because I thought it was hilarious to continue to keep threatening to fuck you. I had no intention of following through, but that could have been in the dream while my wife was pissed. I don't know, maybe she took me as seriously as you were in the dream. I don't know the minds of others whenever I'm asleep.
Sure.
But as all this is going, I suddenly become aware that we're camping, and I decide, I'm a hottie now. I'm going to strut my shit, and I start walking around. I look down and I discover the bullshit moment of the entire dream. I wasn't even a woman with big tits. So, like, what was the entire point?
Wah.
And on that note, welcome to Dane and Jeff's Media Dump. I'm your host, Mr. L. Dane Puzzles Esquire, Mr. Puzzles for short, Dane for shorter. And with me as always, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Grumpy Syllables himself, Jeff. Grumpy Jeff, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, man. I've already hit the point where I make bad life decisions for the sake of having stories for this show. How you been?
I can't make any bad life decisions because I work too much, or I have a wife that keeps me in check.
My wife gave up on that a decade ago, dude.
Well, you gotta remember, I'm a newlywed, but we've been together for almost 7 years, so she still hasn't given up on me. Make sure try to be a man, not the man-child I seem to be 90% of the time.
Yeah, I think I average probably about 95, 98, somewhere in there. So you want to go with what you've been up to lately first, or you want to hear my tales of poor life decisions?
Well, I don't really have much to add, apart from having some issues with my post office. I've just been working too much. Have some various birthday parties we've had this month. My parents both had their birthdays. I have my cousin's birthday. Her 21st is coming Saturday. So it's nothing very exciting. Let's talk about you. Let's discuss these poor life decisions.
Well, before we get into that, I think we have a fun coincidence. You say both your parents' birthdays are in September?
Well, my dad's birthday is the 30th of August, so he's barely. But my parents' birthdays are only 2 weeks apart.
It's about the same. My parents are like a week and a half. My dad's birthday was last week, and my mom's birthday is actually tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday, so everyone can wish my mom a happy belated birthday. She'll never know it, but it's the thought that counts.
Happy birthday, Mother Dane.
But yeah, that's kind of a fun little coincidence there. Just, I was going to say, if they're all in September.
Almost. My dad just missed a cut.
Well, I say my parents' birthdays, the days of it are a week and a half apart, but there's 11 years in addition to all that. There's a little bit of age gap.
They're 11 years apart?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. My parents are only 4 years apart.
And then you got me and my wife, and we're a year and a half apart.
You got my wife and I were 10 years apart.
And I forget how far apart my wife's parents were, but there was actually a little bit more than what mine is. But, enough about parent age.
It doesn't matter. So, we're all 23 anyway.
Yeah. How many times you turned 23? I think about one less than me at this point. Couple months you'll be up there again.
I've turned 23 for the past, what am I at now? Past 13 years I've been 23.
I've got 14 under my belt. I know that we got the same birth year, so you're right behind me.
Yeah, my birthday's a couple months away.
You'll have to make that pick special whenever we get to that, man.
Not really. Well, I'm probably going to just do another childhood pick, or I don't know. We'll definitely make it fun.
Hopefully we won't already be scraping the bottom of the barrel.
No. We got some, I still have a lot of childhood picks, or maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that we can cover. based on the format of our show.
True, it does give us a lot of wiggle room.
If we were video games strictly, then we might be a little bit of an issue because your Steam library is a little more extensive than mine.
Yeah, but that's also a function of like years and years of Humble Bundle stashing, and like one day I actually went through all the Discords I was a member of, used a little tool to download the deals channels where people would sometimes post free codes, and I did some regex editing to pattern match, scraped all of the Steam codes that had ever been posted, like to the beginning of time for the channel, and I just went through one at a time. Like, do I have that? No. Do I have? Seeing how many were still alive, I wound up with like an extra 30-some games from that, and still had a stack of them to post that were duplicates that I didn't have, and like some that I didn't even bother checking that were more recent. And I went back and I reposted them in the respective deals. Things like, hey, these are still alive. These I don't know. But it's unclaimed codes that have been sitting here for a while. Everybody have at it.
Nah, I've been a console gamer for a long time because for about 10 years I was without a PC. Just because what my one PC that I used for a while, if just for some reason like the hard drive or GPU, it just decided to just take a shit, and it was fried basically. It turned on, but it lost everything, so it's just basically dead weight. So then I ended up getting one of those because I wasn't intelligent. My brother bought one. It's like, oh, okay, that seems pretty cool. It was one of those all-in-one computers. That was a mistake. That thing couldn't even look up my emails, so that was just nothing. So I was a console gamer for about 10 years. I've only had this current PC I have now for like maybe the past 4 or 5 years.
I've probably mentioned it before. I was hardcore. Just every console that came out, I had it and had a bunch of games for it. And I fell off at PS2. My brother did eventually get a PS3 when it was still current. But at the end of the PS2 lifespan, that's when I swapped over to PC. Not the only reason I even wound up with a 360 was my buddy was a Marine and his red ringed. And he said he didn't know about the whole send it in, we'll fix it, or replace it.
Yeah.
So he's just like, I'm getting ready to go to Iraq and get shot at, so if you can fix it, you can have it. I got it running for 24 hours and it red ringed again. So then I called them and was like, hey, so the Void warranty sticker fell off. We all still fix it? And they sent me a box, I sent it in, and yeah, sure enough, they still fixed it, and that's how I wound up with a 360, but I've hardly ever played it, because by that point I was on PC.
Sure. Now, it's hard for me to get into a PC. Well, I don't really do a lot of online gaming, just because I don't like dealing with people. I'll play with friends, but like playing with random people, I'm good, thank you. But when I was living at home with my parents, they had terrible internet, so it was just one of those things of I could theoretically play, but I'm about maybe there's like 5-second lag, so it's just one of those things of I'm just gonna do solo gaming, and eventually when my PC just crashed, I just switched over to console gaming.
Well, for the longest time over here, the best we could get was DSL, which is like miles ahead of dial-up.
Oh, sure.
But, like, it still ain't great. We only got cable, like, out our driveway, which our driveway is like a dirt road off of a side road, off of a tertiary road. We only got cable out this way, like, within the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Or, no, wait, I've been living here longer than that. About 6 months before I moved where I'm at now. So, we only got cable out here about 3 years ago.
Yeah, I could tell you, try doing Wi-Fi off a DSL connection. It's pretty bad.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
But go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say, let's talk about these life decisions you've been making.
That's what I was going to cut into, too. So, do you get a bunch of scam emails?
Oh, absolutely.
I've been getting a ton here recently. They'll send me like an image of a fake invoice, which will like have a supposed thing that was super expensive that I bought, and they're confirming it with a little phone number to call.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to do is bait you into calling so they can get your real card information to supposedly refund your money, and then they clean you out.
Yeah.
I get that shit all the time. But I got a new type of scam email. And this one grabbed my attention. So, the title has my full name.
Mm-hmm.
It has an accurate phone number. It has a real address. I'm like, okay. And then the top line of it is, let's talk, and it's got a PDF attached to it.
Okay.
Now, Internet Security 101. Do you download a file from someone you don't know?
Well, here's what I want to ask you. You know the trick to find out if an email is, or if the sender is legit or not, right?
What's your way?
You hover the cursor over the email address, and it reveals its true name.
All right, well, that checked. So it wasn't from a like secondary email. It was a random ass Gmail account that I got this from. But it wasn't somebody I know. So it's got this PDF, and I'm not stupid. You don't download and run files from someone you don't know.
Sure.
But I'm a little more tech savvy than the average person, so I've got more tools at my disposal to figure out what this thing is. And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you watch Linus Tech Tips or not.
I don't.
Big tech YouTuber. They got their YouTube credentials stolen by opening a file that was a PDF that had like a malicious payload attached to it.
Ugh.
It snatched their session token, sent it to somebody, and they shut down their huge site. Like 15 years of content suddenly disappears. They're running crypto scam live streams on LTT.
Yeah.
So, what I do, I download the file to an isolated drive that I keep for sussy-wussy files that I don't trust.
Okay.
Spin up a virtual machine, which is just a, if you're not in the know, it's a virtual computer within the computer. So it thinks it's its own hardware and all this stuff. It's isolated from your main system. Nothing inside of it can reach out and touch your real files.
Okay.
So it's not logged in any accounts. It has no credentials at all that it can pull from. There's nothing. It's a blank slate. I open the file within that, and I read the file. And it's a 2-page document. It has this partial docs that they have on me. I'll replace certain information. It's like full name. We'll say Mr. L. Dane Puzzles. I'm not going to give my last name on this. That's not a secret. I just don't advertise it.
Sure.
Has this phone number 336, etc., etc., etc. An address 437, etc., etc., etc. City, state, zip code, whole shebang. I'm aware I could easily call you at this phone number or come and visit you in person at this address. But I think we can settle things quickly and easily and in a less personal manner here. I've installed remote access software, and he actually goes to the trouble of putting in parentheses RAS on your smartphone. And I've been watching you for some time. I've seen all those girly websites you go to, and I've been recording you. And you've been doing some weird stuff. I have access to your social media. I have access to your bank accounts. You have 24 hours to respond, and I want you to send $2,000 in Bitcoin to this wallet address. If you do not, I will release all the footage that I have collected from you, and all of your friends and loved ones will know what a dirty, dirty boy you have been. By the way, does this look familiar? And he, at the end, has a picture, and it's this tree, and there's a ditch next to it with some rocks in it. I hope to hear from you soon. Now, I find this email 1 o'clock in the morning.
Alright.
I look at the timestamp on it. He's given me 24 hours. It's been 21 hours since he sent it. So I spend the next hour, I go through and do a, standard security thing. Change passwords, make sure everything's nice and locked down. And then I write him back. This is my poor life decision.
Alright.
I'm challenging the guy who has a dox on me. And I've got the copy of the email that I sent to him. I want to read it to you.
Okay.
So his email address was Glenn, couple of numbers at gmail.com. So I said, Dear Glenn, if that is your name, I admire the cut of your jib. Those are some bold claims you've made. You've certainly done some homework. However, You have made a few mistakes, and in the interest of fair game, I'm going to correct them. Using my full name certainly grabbed my attention, but that's public information. And that phone number that you had is very accurate, and you could certainly call me on that if this were the year 2004. See, I know that number by heart because that's my first cell phone number, which I had on a prepaid singular flip phone. Not very much use now, 20 years after the fact. That address you got really got me, though. That was my first home when I started my family. But here's the problem with that. See, if you tried to visit me there, you'd instead find an elderly woman who has no fucking clue who I am. I rented there almost 10 years ago, and I know of at least 3 different families who have moved in and out in the years since. But that big finish of yours, that picture of the tree, to be honest, it's the most odd thing in your letter. I did not recognize this photo at all, but I did remember a small quirk of GPS with my old address. You see, Google Maps places my addy a half mile further up the road than it really is. So, if you use Google Street View, turns out it shows that same tree in another person's yard. I can see where you'd make a mistake. You're a busy guy, but it makes the threat of actually knowing where I live ring even less true. But these are all minor mistakes. You're running a dox on someone, you're bound to pull up some dated info here and there. Here's the big ones you made. You're demanding $2,000. I'm assuming USD. Problem is, if you have access that you claim you have, you would know I don't have $200 across all my accounts right now. You can't squeeze water out of a rock. Next, your entire threat hinges on me actually watching porn on my phone, for me to believe that you have something you can hold against me. I will admit, there is a lot of embarrassing shit I do with my phone. Unfortunately for you, the closest I get to looking at porn are some not safe for work memes on Discord. While I wouldn't want to send those to my mom, she is very familiar with my sense of humor, so I'm not very motivated to pay the fees that you were asking. But your biggest mistake by far was sending the address of your Bitcoin wallet. I'm going to be reporting that to every crypto exchange that will accept a report, as well as the authorities. Now, while I doubt you live in the United States, you're going to have a more difficult time exchanging your ill-gotten gains for real money now. So at the end of the day, all you have are empty threats, which you've concocted around very dated information you clearly obtained from some sort of data leak. The only thing you've cost me is an hour of my time changing my passwords as a precautionary security measure, and you have not installed anything on my phone. I have a root access on my device. I can see what's there. So I fucking dare you to prove me wrong, you insignificant piece of shit. Yours in Christ, Mr. Puzzles. P.S. Good news, bad news. The coworker you have the hots for, but you don't know if he's gay too, actually is. But that dick pic you sent when you were drunk that night proved him right, and you're less than half the man he's looking for. Better luck next time, guy. I took a shot in the dark with that last one. I'm assuming he's in a country where homosexuality is frowned upon, and that's going to scare him a little bit. So that was my response. So,
Did you get a reply back?
I've not received any emails, but he did hack my Facebook and send the first dick pic I ever sent to my wife to everyone on my friends list. But joke's on him, everyone knows it's not me because it's the wrong color. So, I mean, what damage has he really done?
Oh, that is... You see, I would have avoided this whole thing just by deleting it. I don't respond to emails that I don't recognize, so I just delete everything.
Well, odds are it's some dude in one of those damn, like, the legit office that does real work 10% of the time, and then they spend 90% of their time trying to scam old people out of their paychecks and shit.
Sure.
It's probably an organized thing. He had a damn form letter, and they're just filling in shit from an info data leak. All I'm doing is wasting his time by responding and trying to fuck with him. I've fucked with scammers before. It's kind of fun. Like, if you can drag them along and make them think that you're going to send them Bitcoin, and then, you know, after wasting days and days of their time, you just send them a JPEG of a couple of Bitcoin symbols.
You see, I never. I mean, yes, I've had the obvious. This is the IRS. We have a warrant for your arrest unless you send us like $500 in iTunes. It's just, or like iTunes gift cards or stuff like that. It's just like delete. I don't bother with a lot of that stuff just because. Would it be fun to waste their time? Yes, because you're wasting my time. But at the same time, I'm very lazy.
Well, I'm just an insufferable troll. And like I said, normally I just completely discount scam emails and just kick them right out. But that one did enough to grab my attention and make me take it serious for just a second to see what was going on.
Yeah.
And he wasted an hour of my time, so I'm going to waste some of his. At least in reading my response. I thought about sending a message like claiming to have put some malicious thing and this, that, and the other, and make him go, oh shit, I've messed up my work computer. But nah, it's funnier to just be a little bit of an asshole about it.
Oh, sure. And the advice I gave, hovering the cursor over the email address, that is a real hack that you can do. Don't click on the email, just hover it. It will reveal like the true like shadow email address. And every time I think something is suspicious, like Xfinity bill, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, okay, it's coming from like ZZABQRD. It turns out just to be all crap.
Now another fun one. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it'll let you know who's selling your data. So if you make your like standard email address, like mrpuzzles@gmail.com, every time you make an account somewhere, make a dupe of your thing. So like mine would be Mr. Puzzles dash like FB for Facebook, and make my Facebook account with that.
Okay.
Make a different one, say for Discord, for Twitter, all these different things, and have a different email for each different account. That way, when you start getting scam emails and advertisements and spam and all this other stuff on that, you know who has been selling your data, and it's just a little fun moment of, I caught you. If that's the only thing you ever sign up for with that email, you know who's selling your shit. And you'll know who the good actors are that aren't selling your stuff because you're not going to get anything else on it.
Interesting. Because, yeah, I have like 2 main emails, and everything is linked to those.
And then you keep, your main one for getting personal emails, contacting friends, coworkers, something like that.
Interesting. I have to remember that one.
Just a fun little one.
I have to remember that one.
And then if you got a password manager, you don't have to worry about memorizing the passwords for all that stuff, because you're only going to use the email address if you forget your password for whatever service you signed up for with.
Sure. Sorry, there's people outside walking their dog. At least it sounded like a dog. Could have been a coyote for all I know.
Their werewolf stepson? I don't know, was the right time of month for that? I don't even know what the moon is.
We just had a full moon, so you're a little bit late.
People don't know when we're recording this. For all I know, I lied about it being Monday. We're recording it. It's a full moon out tonight. Super spooky.
It will be in 1 month. Definitely one of my favorite months of the year. Not for Halloween, but just because the weather is perfect. I love fall weather. Yeah,
it's finally starting to feel it here.
I mean, it definitely could drop 10 more degrees, but I'll take this for now.
It was really pretty. The last couple of days we had have been hotter than balls, but today it cooled back off again. I was up in Boone, up on the mountain, and the leaves are already changing up there.
Yeah, the leaves are definitely changing here.
So, do you have any more fun little intro stories?
No, I don't really have any fun intro stories because I'm not a fun guy. All I do is work, sir. I work, I come home, I eat dinner. Maybe I'll play a video game or watch TV, then I go to bed. Like tomorrow, I have to work overtime, so I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, man. I used to work where I had to get up before the ass crack of dawn. My first job out of high school, I was getting up at 3:30 to go to the jail and feed the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was working at Walmart, I fought to get off of closing so I could get back on that early-ass morning schedule.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into the meat of the episode, I've got a new segment for us.
All right.
So, I'm titling this new segment, haha, Dalton found an error. So this is going to replace last episode's We Done Goofed. I've decided to name it after him because every time we record, I get a message from Dalton like, "Hey, great episode. Really funny stuff. By the way." So, this episode's haha, Dalton found an error. So, last time we were talking about survival games in one of our many tangents.
Alright.
And I mentioned the survival game that I was really into for a long while, and I called it The Long Night. That game is actually titled The Long Dark.
I never caught it. Actually, fun fact, because I've been listening to a Mass Effect podcast, and apparently, everyone knows that the voice actors for male and female Shepard is Mark Meer and Jennifer Hale. Well, apparently they are the main voice actors for that game. They're a married couple. So I was just like, oh, fun fact. And yes, I do have that game on my PlayStation Network. Why do you have to be... Sorry, I have a cat next to the microphone. She loves to purr. I don't want her purring right into the microphone.
And brings a little bit of love into the episode.
Say hi, Puke. Thank you. So anyway, continue. So we done... was that it? We done goofed?
There was that, and during one of Kana's questions where she asked what I was smoking right now, I did name the wrong brand for Piccadilly. I said it was Cornell and Dill, which Cornell and Dill does make it, but it's actually the brand is actually GLPs. So, but yeah, expect more mistakes. I am in fact an alcoholic, but yeah.
I got my alcoholism out of me in my 20s. Now, of course, after a long day or a long week at work, I do like the occasional vodka cocktail, but otherwise I don't drink much. I certainly don't smoke. So I'm definitely the good boy of this podcast.
I'll corrupt you yet. It's what all the cool kids do.
Yeah, right?
They smoke, they drink, and they get other people to do it through peer pressure.
Yeah, there it is. Hey, Jeff, peer pressure's a real thing. Even in your 30s, it's a real thing.
I'm pushing 40. You should smoke. You ain't got much less life left. How much can you really lose at this point?
I'll get back to you on that one. To be determined.
Me and my best friend out of high school, we had this thing where we called it the death race because we had both decided, I forget who fired the first shot, but one of us decided that we were going to leave something terrible to the other one in our will. And the other of us said, well, I'm going to leave something terrible to you in my will. And then we both realized only one of us gets to play this joke because one of us is going to die first. So I took up chain smoking and drinking heavily and disregarding traffic laws, and he joined the military. And then my mom kind of set us both down and said, this needs to stop, which happened a lot. Me and him did a lot of really dumb shit. You'll hear him brought up frequently. We'll call him Big Dick Brandon.
All right.
Because his name's Brandon and 11 and a half inches. He is going to be so happy that I advertised that for him.
Well, you better be careful, because remember, we do know a big dick pipe baker.
True. Very true. Very big, wonderful pies. So, love you, Chris. I don't know if you listen yet. We'll get you one day if we haven't yet.
We definitely advertise in the Tadpog Discord.
He's at least aware that we're up to something.
Absolutely. But do we want to get into the meat and potatoes of this episode?
Yeah, I think it's time for some actual topic stuff. So this was your pick, so...
Yep, this was my pick for this episode. I wanted us to dive into some childhood nostalgia, because listening to other podcasts, I was really in that vibe. So I was like, you know what? Let's talk about something that means a lot to me. And watching it now, I realized if it weren't for childhood nostalgia, this would be a terrible show, but god damn it, do I love Speed Racer.
I'm so glad I'm not going to be the only one shitting on this, because I fucking hated the show when I was a kid.
You're just like my parents. Everyone in my family watched me They would see me sitting down in front of the TV. I would be watching 2, 4 straight episodes in a row, and they're just like, "Why the hell are you watching this? This is stupid." And I'm just like, "You just don't get it." I think it's because I had it wasn't so much the cartoon itself. It was just like, that Mach 5 is cool, man.
Well, the deal with me was, and I'll go ahead and get my background with the show out because there's not much to tell, and I know that you're definitely going to be doing the heavy lift and talking about Speed Racer, the anime.
Sure.
But, we both grew up in a time where if you didn't have the good TV plan, that your options for cartoons were limited.
Sure.
Yeah, I remember a time before I had Nickelodeon, because we never had Disney growing up, that, I was limited to, like, the Saturday morning cartoons on Fox and shit. And you knew the jig was up when Soul Train came on. I think it was Fox. I've slept
you had the Fox morning cartoons. Did you also have a Disney afternoon?
We didn't have Disney afternoon. We would get, like, the Disney free trial weeks or free Disney weekend shit from time to time.
Sure.
And my mom would just get a bunch of VHS and, like, turn it on that and just record everything that went through it. So that was the Disney stuff that we had in the house. Yeah,
that's how we got a lot of our taped copies of, like, Fifth Element or Maverick with Mel Gibson, movies like that. We did the exact same thing.
And then eventually we got an old-ass satellite dish. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but we just took it down, like, a year ago. It was, like, 12-foot tall, big-ass satellite dish, like in,
The Cable Guy?
What was that? No, not that big. Like the one that they got in that John Ritter movie, where he gets sucked into the TV.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Stay tuned.
But that was actually gotta be my question. Are we talking about, like, one of those giant ones or the more conventional ones now? But you're referring to those giant monsters.
Yeah, the big ass one, because the one we had was like 6 foot diameter.
All right.
And whenever you changed the channel, like, you had different satellites that it would point at. So you would set the satellite, so it was like Telestar 6 or E5 or this, that, and the other. So the dish itself would actually physically change its position to be aimed at that satellite.
Oh yeah.
And then it would have, like, 30 or 40 or 50 channels on that satellite, and you just had to learn which channel was on what. And then sometimes you get lucky and you'd find one. We always called them wild feeds. I don't know what they actually were, but it was like generic sets of things that they would play that would have space for commercials, but it would just be like color bars.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember watching Pulp Fiction for the first time like that. It's like, watching Pulp Fiction, and then it would, like, pause for a commercial, and it would just stop, and it would put up the test colors on the screen.
Yeah.
But when we got that, we did finally get Cartoon Network, and then eventually we got Nickelodeon later on. Or maybe that's vice versa, but we did eventually get those things, and sometimes I would encounter Speed Racer on something. I don't know where it was showing, but I would encounter Speed Racer. And, like, if I was channel surfing trying to find a cartoon and the only thing I could find was Speed Racer, I would turn it off and go the fuck outside. And if you cannot see me right now, which most of the people hearing me talk cannot, only Jeff can see me, I am the whitest thing since sliced bread, so outdoors is not my natural environment. But yeah, I would hear the song, I would, see it, and just, even then, however young I was, I knew this is bad.
Yeah, I can't explain to you why I loved it, but first time I saw it, I'm just like, oh, it had to have been the Mach 5. I mean, I don't know what it was, because even to this day, I'm still a car guy, and I think the Mach 5 is still the greatest TV movie car, because, they did make a real version of it for the movie. But
yeah, and I know that we'll end up talking about the movie later, because I did watch it.
And
very much so.
I am curious to know your opinion on that one. But
well, we'll get the show out first.
But yeah, I have such childhood nostalgia for this movie or for the show, and it's It's terrible. I am not going to deny it. It's terrible. A lot of the things that they're talking about. I mean, we'll go into an example. This is me being a car nerd. So, in the first episode, you see it does a zoom in on the Mach 5 speedometer, and it says 250 kilometers. Well, me, I'm just like, wait a minute. Hold on 1 second. I go to Google. What is that in miles per hour? So, that's about 155 miles an hour. So, for those who don't know, the anime came out in 1967. And so there were cars, Lamborghini, Ferrari, even NASCAR. There were cars that doing 180, almost 200 miles an hour. And this anime is constantly saying the Mach 5 is the most powerful, the fastest car in the world. It's just like, it's really not.
Oh, busted on facts.
And even then, it's some of the things that they just go into the details. It's like, that is not possible. Like Pop's Racer, Speed Racer's father, he's like, I have designed this engine that can rev up to 32,000 RPM. It's just like, that is not physically possible. I don't even think jet turbines can rotate that quickly.
Yeah, because after you spin something so fast, it flies apart.
Yes.
There is like a limit to how fast an object can move before it just disintegrates itself.
Yeah, it disintegrates. It's no avoiding that. But yeah, it's just my most recent watch of this. I was just picking out these tiny details. I'm just going, not possible. Nope, that's not possible either. What's that? That when you push the one button, all of a sudden, each wheel receives 5,000 horsepower. So you're telling me that this engine produces 20,000 horsepower? It was so many things it was talking about. I was like, no, that's not possible. But I was just watching it with a big old grin on my face, just because I knew this is stupid, but this is my childhood.
I don't know. Eventually, we're going to hit shit that we're going to cover, and it's going to be like something I love and cherish from my childhood. We're both going to be like, this is so fucking dumb, and I'm still going to love it. And I don't fault you on it, man.
You want to know a fun fact though?
Sure.
So the manga, excuse me, they did release them into some comics that were released in America. They were released under Wildstorm Productions. Fun fact. It was a division of DC Comics.
That explains it, because I've never been big on DC. That's what we'll blame it on.
But, so this is a fun fact of... So you're saying that they could do a Justice League movie, and Speed Racer could be there. I'm in. But yeah, no, this is definitely... It's definitely a 60s animated cartoon. It is terrible. It is highly exaggerated, but I mean, there's just everyone can make fun of it, but almost everyone has a soft spot for it. Like I was talking to Dalton, he found out, he's just like, "Oh my god, I love Speed Racer."
No, he was trying to get us to play the PlayStation game.
And I would if I knew where it was. I don't think I saw it on the PS Network, so it's one of those things of if I ever see a copy of it, well, I'm going to have to dig out my PlayStation out of storage, and Lord knows I don't want to do that because I have a big storage locker, and it's buried all the way in the back of it, and I don't feel like crawling over sofas to get it.
Well, emulating PlayStation 1 games at this point has kind of become trivial for most computers. My retro handheld handles PS1 games pretty well. There's not been very many that I found that it doesn't run.
Yeah.
I had actually put it on because I've got a Anbernic RG35XX. It's the same one that Dalton has that Miklov sent him. And it runs PS1 games really good. I put it on there with the intention of trying it out and just never got around to booting it up.
Yeah.
But it is in fact a thing.
I mean, I do remember there was a Speed Racer Flash game. I do recall that. I don't recall the website. It could have been Flash Games for all I know, or Addictive Games, something like that. And there was and it's just like, oh boy, Speed Racer. And it was, as you expect, just this poorly done racing game, but for the most part, pretty entertaining. But yeah, I don't. I mean, what can we say about this? I mean, I know you didn't watch all of it, so I mean, I suppose how many episodes did you watch? Like, did you start from the beginning?
I started at the beginning, and I made it like 10 minutes into the first episode. I was like, maybe it gets better. So I just started jumping around. I never managed to make it through a full episode because it was just physically painful for me. But
okay.
the things that just kept jumping out at me, they were using all of the dirty tricks for animation. Cycling animations, repeating animations.
Mm-hmm.
And the dub is just terrible. I know that this is one of those that, people will mock as being a terrible dub because you'll kind of have the ha-ha kind of sound effects in there. I never caught any of that, but I know that people make fun of it like they do that. But yeah, and it could have been the recording quality that I was watching.
Yeah.
I'll give it a little bit of benefit of the doubt. Maybe it didn't sound as garbage when the stuff was actually airing.
How were you watching this?
I was pulling it up, just full episodes on YouTube. I forget the channel that I was pulling them up off of.
Was it the channel that I sent you?
It could have been. I know that I looked at the one you sent, and without actually bothering to pull it up, I just kind of Googled or YouTube searched Speed Racer full episodes and got like full season playlists and shit.
Yeah. No, that's basically what I did as well, just because I don't have Crunchyroll or any of that. I know it's not streaming on any of the platforms I have, so it's just like, YouTube, don't fail me now. You have it. Excellent. And it sounded fine to me. It still sounded like the poor 60s cheesy dub that made me laugh.
It definitely does feel like the Japanese equivalent of the Flintstones or the Jetsons, just to me.
I get it.
Like that kind of old, we're animating on a budget.
Yes.
We're doing the best we can, sort of things.
It has aged poorly. I'm not going to deny that.
But just through cultural osmosis, I am familiar with a lot of things from Speedway Racer, like the Mach 5, the names of most of the characters, like Pops, Speed, Racer X, Chim Chim.
Yeah.
I think Trixie's the girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know he's supposed to be super good racer and all of that, but like the episode that I watched, it was just, I don't know if it was where I was watching it late at night and it was particularly vulnerable to cringe.
Well,
I couldn't do it.
Definitely the start of the show, it's the origin of like he wants to be a world racer, but Pops won't let him because of what happened, the fallout he had with his other son Rex. But it's just one of those things of like, come on, can we get beyond this little bit? Because it really is this arc lasts the first 4 episodes, and I do believe the following episode, the next, episode 7, I remember vividly. I remember it because it's the race against the mammoth car. Did you ever recall seeing that thing?
I don't remember coming across that one. Let's see.
Well, it's this like 1 mile long giant racing machine that's just like, okay, this is physically impossible, but yet it is just, it's amazing. It's wonderful. Hold on, I'm saving an image and I'm gonna post it in the chat. 1 second. Where the hell did I put you? Oh, I need to save it, don't I? Sorry about that, folks. One of your hosts is an idiot. But
why you gotta talk about me like that, Jeff?
I'm sorry, but no. If it give you an idea, I posted a picture in the chat. You see that how giant this thing is compared to the cars that it's racing against. It's a monster truck, and it's like a mile long.
It's not showing up on my...
Or maybe... There we go.
Oh, okay. There we go.
There we go.
Just landed.
Yeah.
Someone is compensating.
It's definitely very idiotic, but when I think of Speed Racer, this is one of the things I think of, just the mammoth car, just because. Why? Because there is a plot reason behind making this thing, because this whole thing is made out of solid gold, and this was their way of like trying to, for this mobster to get away with all this gold. So it's like, so you made a vehicle that's like a mile long, and that appears to be like 30, 40 feet tall. How much gold was it? Because this whole thing is made out of gold.
Okay, so remember when you were talking about that's impossible earlier?
Yes.
Let's talk about the properties of gold.
It's not strong.
Gold is very dense. It is a heavy metal for its amount.
Yeah.
It is very soft.
Yes.
So you couldn't make a motor strong enough to move that thing.
But you don't understand. This vehicle, I think, had like 30,000 horsepower per car.
That's not enough.
Well, damn it, Dane, the show made it possible. Don't besmirch the show. It is sound logic.
Gold is so soft, that thing would collapse under its own weight.
Well, it did melt. It got caught in an explosion, and it melted at the end of the episode.
Okay, so they got it factually right in like one regard.
I mean, granted, it did take like 2 minutes for everything to finally finish, but it's just like, yeah, okay, we get it. It's made of gold. What more do you want?
Wow.
But yeah, no, this cartoon is definitely... Anime, excuse me, I'm going to piss off a lot of people. This anime is horrible. It is poorly drawn. It's terribly aged. But I absolutely love it.
I do know there's a lot of people who have a soft spot for it. And I know that I'm kind of like the odd man out for it. I couldn't stand it when I was a kid. There was just never a point where I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. You have to get past the... how absurd its logic is. Because let's face it, the logic is definitely checked out the window. If you put this anime in space, it's not airtight. There are so many dead astronauts.
All of them are dead.
But go ahead.
And I'm going to draw a comparison with the film. And I don't know if you want to segue into that yet, but, I watch, bits and pieces of all these episodes just trying to come up with something coherent to say about it.
Sure.
And I know that there's some kind of through line going on, and my lack of patience with the anime was definitely getting in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to the Wachowskis' take on it.
Yes.
And clearly this anime was a big deal to them because, making the Speed Racer movie, from my understanding, was kind of a passion project for them.
I believe it.
So, you brought it up and you were really excited for me to watch the movie.
I was.
Do you have anything you want to say about it, just straight off the rip?
Well, I think everyone's going to know that I love this movie. It's definitely a top 10 for me, so no one wants to hear me gush about it. I mean, the only thing I will say is I saw this movie in theaters, and the entire time I was very excited. I was with a friend of mine who was also a huge in Speed Racer, and there was one moment where he does the pose. Like, he gets out of the car, he does the pose. And I almost got out of my chair yelling at the screen, "He did the pose! He did the pose!" I had to restrain myself from doing that just because I was so excited. But enough about that. I want to know, Dane, what is your opinion of this movie? The Wachowski movie that came out in 2008.
Yeah, I was going to say, it came out in 2008. When it came out, I was aware that it existed, but again, having no love or nostalgia for the franchise, I could not have given less of a shit about it. And I was really surprised that so many people kept tearing it apart because, just talking about other parts of the Wachowskis' body of work, I watched all the Matrix movies.
Yeah.
I loved all the Matrix movies, both the good one and the bad ones. I loved them all, including the most recent one. And I couldn't understand how they could apparently botch this movie so bad that people were hating on it so much. Because I'd just seen a lot of people just tearing this movie apart.
Yeah.
And whenever you were telling me about it and I told you I was going to watch it, you kept hyping it up and talking about how, you had me expecting this was going to be like a feast for the eyes or some stuff. And I'd heard few things about it. And when I watched this movie, it is visually impressive to the point of being disconcerting.
It's very harsh to the eyes at first watch. I will agree with you on that. It is one of those things that you're not expecting it to be the movie they made. How to describe it? They really made the colors, the imagery. They really make it pop. The problem is, if you're not prepared for it, it might be too much. So at first watch, it is definitely very disconcerting. I will agree with you.
Because, the movie is wonderfully stylized.
Yes.
Like, it's got style seeping out of every pore. They didn't get this much style crammed into Persona 5. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And, if anyone from now on ever asks me, what would a live-action anime look like, I'm going to point at this movie. This is a live-action anime. It's across the board. They've got so many of the tropes, so many of the conventions, and, just a quick one-off before I get more deeper into it. Watching the fight scenes, and the fact that they went in and animated in little distortion swooshes to follow the punches and kicks.
Yeah.
Like they do to emphasize motion in manga and anime.
Sure.
Just those little touches. Just such attention to detail. It was staggering to me. But it took me almost an hour into the movie, and I think the runtime was 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long movie.
Yeah. It took me an hour into it for my eyes to finally adjust to just the saturation of it and the weird kind of focus of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is so layered where they wanted to make sure that they could manually control the focus of every segment of the frame.
Yeah.
And there's tons of scenes where, everything is in perfect focus. Things in the foreground, things in the background, the entire room, everything's perfectly focused like it's a flat drawing. They were trying to emulate that anime feel. What they set out to do, they definitely accomplished, but I can understand why people wouldn't like it, because when you're watching something live action, that comes with certain expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, just as a quick aside, Peter Jackson's Hobbit movie suffered from this.
We're not here
beyond all of the other problems.
We're not here to talk about that.
But just the fact that he filmed it at 48 frames per second instead of 24.
Mm-hmm.
That has other side effects that he didn't account for. He wanted everything to be crisp for being able to layer in stuff for the 3D. But filming at a higher frame rate reduces motion blur. And that is something that is so baked into the language of film.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you watch, say, some random soap opera or something on television, they're filming with cheap digital cameras that are filming 60 frames per second.
Okay.
Everything is so smooth it feels unnatural, and that makes it feel cheap because it's shooting on a budget. You don't get that motion blur that we expect from a high production value thing.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a baked-in thing to the medium. So by removing that depth of field, for instance, you're removing something that people expect. And while the average person watching the movie is not going to be able to say, everything's in perfect focus, this doesn't look right, they are going to look at it and they'll go, something's off, but I can't put my finger on it. So I think that the movie kind of suffered from being too well executed on their vision.
So let me ask you this, because it sounds like you are if I were to judge, you're pretty 50-50 on this. So, will you ever give if you were to give this a second watch, do you think you would have a better opinion of it, knowing now what you're going to expect in terms of visuals?
Well, if you want me, I can jump straight to my final thought on just the opinion of the movie. Honestly, I liked it.
You did like it?
Yeah, honestly, I did like it. It took me a while to get used to the movie on its own terms.
Yeah.
But once I was like, okay, so this movie has a lot of visual crack going on, I'm adjusted to it, and, this became my new normal. Once I adjusted to it, I was fine. And I'm just kind of talking about it as, I can see a lot of people being turned off by the way they presented the movie.
Now, an hour in, is that you're at the Casa Cristo race? Or where is that at an hour in?
I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I think it was that particular race. Roundabout then was when I suddenly became aware of the fact that I have actually finally achieved suspension of disbelief, and I'm no longer looking at this world at how artificial everything has become. I'm taking it at its setting. So that was when the kind of effects and style that they were putting into it stopped taking me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's where they were being a little less crazy with it at that point. But that's also where I really started appreciating some of those subtle nuances, like the, motion swipes from the punches and kicks and stuff.
What did you think of the cast of this movie?
Some of the picks were just absolutely pitch perfect to me. Like, when I saw John Goodman walk on screen, I was like, okay, no matter what, I'm at least going to like John Goodman's character.
Yes.
Like that, Christina Ricci, very serviceable. She didn't do bad. And, my wife mocks me all the time. That was my first youthful crush on someone who was famous. Was Christina Ricci. Like, I wore out Casper. I'm going to admit to watching a girl movie. I watch Now and Then.
I don't know what Now and Then is.
It was a coming-of-age flick for, preteen girls. Mm-hmm. But it had Christina Ricci in it, so I was like, I'll rent this. So, no, this looks like a good movie. Like, even the dude at the video store was like, Dane, this is a girl movie. I'm like, shut up, James. But,
Susan Sarandon's in it. She plays Ma Racer. Emil Hirsch is Speed himself, and I think this is a stellar cast. I think everyone plays their part perfectly.
I think the one real complaint that I will have, and it could just be me, or it could be a case of the sort of thing that I'm looking for. I did feel like Speed was kind of a nothing box of a character for at least 90% of the movie. Mm-hmm. And, Twilight suffers from the same thing. And I always assumed that with Twilight, it was where they were trying to keep her from being as a blank slate so that little girls could read the books or watch the movie and kind of project themselves onto that. I wasn't looking for a, fantasy where I'm an amazing racer. So I wanted more real character development for Speed himself.
But I guess you could say it matches how he is in the anime, because he kind of is a nothing character in the anime. He's just like, but Pops, I want to be the world's greatest racing driver.
I mean, his character definition is he's obsessed with wanting to race. So, and that's the only thing. Every scene is just him trying to move towards racing. So he is definitely true to his character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one-dimensional characters aren't always a bad thing, and I'm not saying it's necessarily bad for the movie, because in the end I enjoyed it. I just was very keenly aware that I was more invested in all of the characters around Speed than Speed himself.
No, I can agree with you on that. It does seem like all the other characters have more character. They just feel more real. And Speed, maybe it's just like, your typical, blank, like you were saying, your blank slate, like RPG character. He's just a nothing character. It's supposed to be like inserting yourself into it. And
there's nothing wrong with that. There is a place for that type of fiction out there.
Sure.
But I became very keenly aware of it during the one scene where I suddenly became invested in Speed.
Yeah.
And that was literally the ending sequence of the film.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll work our way up to that.
Sure. So. I will say, I laughed hard when I first saw this scene. It's when, to attempt to describe this story, the Racer family gets sued for like IP infringement because Speed refused to race for this company called Royalton, who I think the actor who plays Royalton, one second, what his name is, Roger Allam. I think he was tremendous. I thought he was so fun, over the top. I thought he was great. But he basically gets butthurt that Speed refuses to race for him. So he starts getting these wheels in motion to basically stop him from racing. Have his father's company collapse from lawsuits and such. So he ends up racing. But it was during this scene where like all this reveal of like the villain is a bad guy. You see Spritle and Chim Chim. They're in the middle of this huge sugar rush right now, while a Freebird is playing in the background.
Yeah.
So, but it's a little bit after this. It's like this guard is like getting Speed and everyone into an elevator so that like kick him out of the building. Right before the elevator door closes, you see Spritle just turn right, like lean into the center of the camera and just flip him off. And I started laughing just because, like, okay, you have maybe this 8 and 10-year-old just flip off the camera. I'm just like, the masterpiece. This movie is a masterpiece.
My headcanon was that was not in the script, and the kid just got away with it, and they decided to leave it in.
If that was
because I know when I was that age, this is the sort of dumb shit I would do. Like, there's a camera rolling, bing.
If that was an ad-lib finger, fantastic. That kid earns all the Oscars. But yeah, it's just like, what can we? What more can we say about this? When I think of Christina Ricci, I think this is her at her best. In terms of looks, I think this is this is the best she'll ever look. Anything else, everyone thinks of like Black Snake Moan. I'm thinking of her in Speed Racer.
I was actually telling my wife about Black Snake Moan the other day, and she did not believe me. She had never seen the movie. She didn't remember any previews for it. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I was like, no, Sam Jackson changed Christina Ricci to a water heater, like to help her get right with Jesus or some shit. She's like, to help her? Yeah, to help her.
Yeah. But what else can we say about this? The Mach 5 looks fantastic, and apparently it is a drivable car. I don't have the information. I do recall reading in a car driver magazine, right when this movie was coming out, and they were talking about like how it drove beautifully, it was fast. It's just like, yes, thank you. Of course, when you watch the movie, you're thinking, there's no way this car is real, but they just had it up on like cranes and like gyroscopes, so that's how they were getting doing all this weird footage of like seeing a car doing all these crazy flips and power slides through these impossible turns. It's just like, yeah, the Wachowskis know what they're doing.
Yeah, there was several, very quickly into the movie, I lost track of what's a prop and what's CG.
Yeah.
That was how smoothly they blended the two. And when you're dealing with cell shading and stuff, that definitely helps. But getting cell shaded looks and actual props, which they weren't like strict cell shading, but to have that kind of saturation and the clean lines and everything, so that when they do have CG in the background, that nothing looks out of place. That goes back to just how impressed I was with all that.
I'm just trying to think. I think there are only maybe 3 sets in this entire movie. Like, while the racer home, I believe, was a set. I think the finish line at the end is a set. I'm trying to think what else. Maybe the Royalton office. I don't know. But otherwise, a lot of this movie is either like green screen or a lot of it is definitely CGI.
Yeah. Which nowadays is kind of the norm for a lot of action movies, especially anything Marvel.
But I think what separates it is just the fact that this movie is very colorful. I mean, I know you said at first it took you out of it for about an hour, but because I went into this like, oh, I grew up with Speed Racer, I think I understand what I'm going to be going into this. I was in the moment they showed us the title screen.
So, one thing that throughout the movie that I really wanted to talk about, because I went into this movie, I did not have, like, I had familiarity with, like, character names and a couple of basic ideas for Speed Racer.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm by no means an expert on the Speed Racer lore, so to speak. So, here's where your massive spoilers come in, so if you care, go watch the movie. It's free on, the Pirate Bay. Racer X. So, going into the movie, I knew the name Racer X. I did not know who Racer X was supposed to be. But and again, big spoilers, it's your last chance. Early in the movie, you're having flashbacks that's cutting back and forth between Speed's first big race and going back to his brother, 10 years previous, who was the big up-and-coming racer, Rex Racer. Ultimately, he leaves the family team, doing his own thing, gets a bad reputation for being too aggressive on the track, and ultimately dies in a car crash.
Yeah.
So, the moment Racer X shows up in the story, my bullshit alarm instantly goes off. I'm like, Racer X, Rex, RX, Rex. That's his brother. Like, instantly, nothing has been telegraphed yet. And then everything in the movie just feels like it's telegraphing it intentionally harder and harder. They're cutting to Racer X at very specific times in dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Even Speed, who only thinks about racing, is like, wait, I think he's actually my brother. So it actually becomes a plot point. I don't think my brother's dead. I think he faked his death. I think Racer X is my brother. Because
Speed keeps claiming it's just like, we have similar racing styles. It's like whatever I'm about to do, you know, and it's like there's a chemistry. It's like whatever I'm about to do, you'll follow. So
like there are reasons for Speed to be suspicious, but just like I said, instantly my bullshit alarms are going off because I'm always the guy. I'm the asshole who wants to figure out the twist before they even reveal that there's going to be one.
Mm-hmm.
And then when everything's down, it looks like everything's hopeless, and Speed's having his thoughtful, I just need to go fast, his Ricky Bobby moment, I just want to go fast.
Yeah.
And he's, blowing off some steam on the track. Racer X shows up. Speed knocks him around. They end up, stopped. He hops out and he confronts him. He's like, "You're my brother." He puts out all the evidence. You showed up 2 years after my brother died. You drive just like him. We work as a team like we've been, riding together all our lives. It's just, all of this. He puts all of his evidence out. Racer X takes off his mask. And it's not his brother. He's like, "Your brother really is dead. I'm sorry." And they had telegraphed it so hard that at this point, I said, "Bullshit. When did you have surgery?" You are full of shit, movie. I'm watching this, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning at this point.
Yeah.
I'm out loud calling bullshit at a movie. I'm glad I didn't wake up my wife. Could have. She probably thinks I'm insane. I'm like, "Bullshit movie. When did he have plastic surgery?" And then they keep going. And they don't address it. I'm like, no. You're lying to me, movie. It's going to come up. And then you get to the end, he kind of gives him his pep talk. Speed gets into the Grand Prix through Deus Ex Machina. beats all the guys who were trying to wreck him. The guy who was like the last line of defense and in the lead, and everyone was like, he's going to be the one winning the Grand Prix. Speed even manages to get him caught cheating using, what was it, a spear hook?
A spear hook.
Which is just an arm that hooks onto someone else's car so you can intentionally wreck them on the thing and turn them loose whenever they're not going to be able to recover and crash.
Correct. This actually has been a plot point throughout. I think definitely earlier in the movie when Speed, same exact thing, encounters this one driver, that drives for Royalton. Same thing, uses the spear hook. Yeah. I have a feeling it's the same thing that they use for Rex when he was trying to race, but this is what leads to everyone calling him a dirty racer. So it wasn't him, it was everyone else manipulating the races using like hidden tech and such.
Yeah. So he wrecks them both. They were at the lead. Car's not starting up. It cuts to Racer X unmasked up in, the penthouse viewing area. And he starts quoting shit Rex said to him when Speed was a kid. I'm like, yeah, movie, I told you were full of shit. And then the one moment in the entire movie where I said I was invested in Speed is, he realizes by kind of listening to the car and feeling it out that if he pops it into fifth gear before he tries to go, that it would jumpstart his engine and everything would go. And then he just kind of gets in the zone and he's, badassing his way from dead last again all the way through the pack so he can have the big win at the ending and totally break everything these controlling corporations have set up. It's his big moment. And it's the only scene that I was purely invested in Speed Racer, the character. And then after all this, it cuts to, Racer X getting ready to leave, Speed's getting ready to go get the trophy. And the Inspector
Detector.
Yeah. Yep. I knew it was something ridiculous like that. It's like, the family's all heading down to the stage. Do you want to go with them? He's like, no. And he's like, do you ever regret not telling them the truth? And then it zooms in on Racer X's face as it goes through all of the flashbacks of Rex faking his own death, having plastic fucking surgery. I called it.
They don't hide it. Even when I first saw it, it's just like, I'm sorry, Speed, but your brother is dead. I'm just like, same as you, when'd you have the surgery?
I'm glad it wasn't just me, because I call bullshit on plot twists all the time, and frequently I can be wrong because I put too much credit into no, they're just trying to fake people out. I'm like, you've not been faking anything. You have telegraphed this so much. There is no fucking way that's not Rex.
Yeah, there's no subtext to this entire movie. Everything is just text out there. Everything is just text. It's just like, we know what you're doing, movie. But I have a feeling all these twists are for the people that have never watched the anime. That is my only assumption, because for those that knew, it's just like, we know you're Rex Racer. It's just a matter of when are you going to reveal it. Oh, you're thrown in this twist. It's like your brother is dead. It's just like, no. You're not fooling me. I know what you're trying to do here.
If they had not telegraphed it as hard, then I can imagine someone who is a fan of the show getting to this and being like, oh, I guess they did change it. I guess, they dropped a couple of hints, wanted us to go, tee-hee, we already know, we're in the know. And so, I said, I was not familiar. I didn't know going into this movie that Racer X is supposed to be Rex Racer. But I knew it from the moment he was on screen. Everything they do is telegraphing that. They hammered it home too hard so that no one paying attention, I felt, is going to believe that they're not going to have some excuse to pull out of their ass at the end of the movie to say this is still Rex. Yeah.
No, this movie is definitely just, there's no subtlety. Subtlety stayed at the front door. Everything is just like, what you said, we're going to telegraph everything to you. We're not gonna be subtle at all. This movie is here strictly for entertainment. We're just gonna do it in the most obvious way possible.
And for all of the hoops they jump through that make like the original Matrix so much fun to watch repeatedly.
Yeah.
Where you watch it again and they say something here and you're like, wait, oh! All of those, now that you know the things that happened earlier make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
You watch it again now that you know those things they said earlier mean even more things that you didn't realize the second time. So the fact that they just kind of said, you know what, fuck it, let's just have fun. The movie is a dumb fun movie. And I imagine that me watching that, and when after that initial just shock to my system that was seeing it, I was invested very quickly. I did thoroughly have fun with the movie. Mm-hmm. I will watch it again. I'm going to show it to my daughter later this week.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This movie is just dumb fun. And if you are familiar with the anime, you realize that this entire movie is just exaggerations. Like, one thing that always comes to mind when I think of over-the-top exaggerations is during the race in the middle, the Casa Cristo, Speed actually gets knocked off a mountain. So now he's like driving down this 80-degree drop. It's damn near vertical. And then he, jumps a crevice. And then all of a sudden he pushes another button. And then it's just like, okay, now we have the grippy tires that you're familiar with in the show. Now he's driving up a 80-degree vertical climb. It's just like, yeah, this is something that the show would have done. It's not possible, but damn it, I'm smiling from ear to ear.
And I think the thing that impressed me the most, just with things like that, like, just the car action in general.
Yes.
At no point watching any of it, as much as I had trouble parsing just the initial explosion of color in the beginning of the movie, I was never once confused who was where in an action scene.
Yes.
And for as fast as they were making everything move, they really did a very good job of making coherent action.
No, the cinematography of this movie is very good. You're right. Because they try to make this very fast, very a lot of action, and I think anyone other than Wachowskis, I think everyone would just be like, what the hell is going on? I'm confused. What's happening? But they managed to, everything is clear. You're never lost where you are. You understand what's going on in the action, and it's just like, and we're still going to make everything as bright, as colorful as possible. Yes, we're going to throw in some blurs, like our, what's that effect where you're driving, but then there's like a light trail behind you?
I know the thing you're talking about. I can't think of like a special name for it.
Because one thing that comes to mind when they're driving through the ice cave, it's just like you see the cars driving through, but then it produces like a light trail behind it. So it's just like they're really going over the top with the anime with the CG, but you understand what's going on. You know who is who. So it's the Wachowskis, I think, even though this movie did bomb in the box office, they knew what they were doing. Everything is perfectly clear, very easy to follow. I mean, that's the work of master filmmakers.
And you can tell watching this movie, they made the Speed Racer movie that was how they remembered feeling about the show.
Yes.
And I can see somebody watching the show being into it, loving it, getting swept up in the fantasy of these over-the-top races, ridiculous cars, the kind of, gadgets that they had with the cars and things that they could do with it. I can see someone getting swept up in the fantasy of that. The movie captures that. Mm-hmm. It does a great job of that. But the visual language that they were telling the story in was just too foreign to the audience that they were presenting it to. I'd say
Sure.
anyone like you who was really, really big fan and had a whole lot of love for Speed Racer probably loved it as much as you did.
Yeah, this is a cult favorite. But the weakest thing about this movie is its story is very bare bones. I mean, even I was talking about with the whole IP infringement lawsuit plot, that gets ignored very quickly. This movie is just focused on the visuals, and I'll be honest, the music is excellent as well.
It was, and even I had moments of, hearing the Speed Racer theme coming up in moments of Speed Triumph, going, you know what, it maybe the Go Speed Racer Go thing wasn't that bad, and then after I watched the movie, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna give the show another try. No.
It's still bad. The show is still bad.
Show is still bad. I'm like, without the nostalgia, the show don't work. But in spite of the lack of the nostalgia, the movie worked for me. So I didn't really enjoy that.
That actually makes me happy. Because I was a little bit nervous because not everyone... If you don't get into the visuals of this movie, then it won't work. I mean, you have to find yourself loving the visuals that they present to you, the cinematography, the music, the cast of characters they give you. If you're on board with them, this is a wonderful, fun movie. But if, like for you, it took you an hour, and that's actually a lot of more time that a lot of people would just be like, I'm 30 minutes in, and this movie still hasn't grabbed me. I'm out, and they won't give it the full chance. Well, go ahead.
I'll be honest, I don't know exactly when my moment of, okay, this is looking normal now, really hit. It was a very gradual thing. I was an hour in when I became suddenly aware that I just accepted the world. So, it could have been at the 30-minute mark, it could have been 45, it could have been like immediately before I realized it. So, but I know that I was watching the movie, a lot of the early stuff, just the unnaturalness of it was taking me out, and I kept having to intention, like, no, focus, keep watching. But an hour in was when I realized, it doesn't look weird anymore. I'm good.
So it was the visuals that got you in it. It wasn't just like all of a sudden you realize, oh, okay, this movie's bullshit. I'm in now.
Well, part of me wants to say the movie's very style over substance, but I think the substance is the style. Like, it's what they set out to do was to recreate that. And that was the real goal. And when your goal is, we're going to make something that's dumb fun, that's very loud looking, that captures the feel that we have when we think about this show from, 50 years ago. That's what we're aiming for. That's what they accomplished.
Yes.
So, the film is a success for the goals that they set out. And it's better than what people treated it, but I thoroughly understand why people didn't like looking at it.
I think another reason why this movie was panned was because apparently there was also a issue with animal cruelty. Because apparently they were the chimpanzees that portrayed Chim Chim. Apparently he got a little rough with the actor who played Spritle, and I guess they used physical harm on the chimpanzee. So PETA went up in arms, just like, this is unacceptable. We got to boycott this movie. So it's just like, I don't know. I want to say that doesn't have a huge impact. I mean, don't get me wrong. It sucks that it has this black spot on it, but I think you're right. It's just, if people can't accept this intense visuals, they're gonna have a hard time getting into it.
And if you're an audience member going in and you're not familiar with just the visual language of anime at all, then you're not going to know what they were shooting for, and it's really just going to look like visual soup. especially with some of the effects that they have very early on.
I will say this is a much better adaptation of an anime than they did with Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh man, yeah. Shyamalan really screwed the pooch on that one.
Yes, he did. But I think...
Or Dragon Ball Evolution.
I've never seen those movies. I've only seen Nostalgia Critic reviews of them, and I can understand why people would feel so insulted.
Dragon Ball Evolution was so bad, Toriyama came out of retirement on the franchise.
And is that what he made?
That was when he decided, alright, I'm coming back, and they started doing, they did the...
Super?
It led to Super. They made Battle of Gods, which was the first movie that was supposed to be canon to the series.
Yeah.
Because you cannot fit any of the other movies into the canon. But he came out and said, Battle of Gods is canon to Dragon Ball Z, period. Whether you're, manga or the TV series, it's canon to both. This is the thing that happened next, officially. And then they did Resurrection F, and then both of those were popular enough that they started Dragon Ball Super. The first two arcs were retelling those two movies in longer form, and then went on and on. But the thing that prompted that was just how fucking bad Dragon Ball Evolution was.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I think we discussed enough of this movie. Do you have a grading for it?
How would I grade this movie? I'm going to give it a bullshit you had face surgery out of 10. And all that implies.
What does that even mean?
Well, I've got to get even more abstract than the things that they do over at TSMP.
Well, I was just looking for a normal letter grading. You're going off and saying one facial reconstruction out of 10 Mach 5s or whatever. It's like, if I were to do a normal letter grading, and I'm only doing letters just because I'm a boring guy and I'm not creative enough, obviously, based on a subjective opinion, this is an A+. I mean, to me, this movie is perfect. But to actually put some criticism and such, like I said, the story makes no sense. What you were saying about Speed's portrayal, you are correct. But I also feel that is very... It's just like how he is in the anime. So but I'm still not gonna... I'll still deduct the fact that it's just like Speed is a boring character. It's the people around him that gives him substance. So I will give this probably maybe a B-, maybe a B. I mean, this movie is great, but it does have its issues, especially on a first viewing. Now, if I were to give this I was just going to say, if I were to give this a crazy grading like they do in TSMP, this movie gets 10... Let me think. 10 Trixies out of 10 Freebird Sugar Rushes.
I would say, honestly, it's a hard recommend. And I don't mean, like, it's hard to recommend. Like, I'm recommending it. It is honestly a fun movie if you've never given it a shot. Just, have a bottle of Advil handy in case you're the sort who, like, there's too much going on. This is giving me a headache.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot to watch the first time you watch it. But it's a good movie.
I do recommend a second viewing. Because the first viewing is you have to understand what you're going to expect, and it might be overwhelming at first. But once you get through it, or once you understand what this movie is about, the second viewing is so much better. But yeah, so do you have a quiz for us?
Yeah, we've got one that we're putting together on the fly and getting it out real quick. So, we've talked about Speed Racer. We talked about the movie. We spent a lot of time on the movie because, I really had a lot of thoughts. I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is I think we should play the IMDb game.
Okay.
So, most of you probably have not heard the IMDb game before. The rules are simple. We will have a selection of titles. What I'm going to do, I will read a few facts from the IMDb page for Jeff, and he's going to have a chance to guess what this has been rated on a score out of 10 to the first decimal point. And since we talked so much about Speed Racer live action anime, we're going to do the live action anime adaptation IMDb game. So
I'm basically guessing its star rating based on IMDb reviews.
Yep. So a perfect score would be a 10.0. I think the lowest that it can go is 0.2.
Yeah.
I don't think you can actually get a 0 on it, or it could be 1.1. I'm not sure. But everything is going to be above a 1, below a 10.
Okay.
So that's the kind of range that you're guessing. And let's say, because I'm making a lot of this up on the fly, if you can get it within a point and a half, you get a point. If you hit it nail on the head, you get a bonus. You can get 5 points.
Okay.
So that's what we want to go with. So let's pull up some live action anime adaptations, because all of those have always been so wonderful.
Yes, they have.
So we're going to bring it off strong. Everybody's favorite train wreck. The Netflix release of Cowboy Bebop's live action animation, or live action adaptation. From the IMDb description, a ragtag crew of bounty hunters chases down the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. They'll save the world for the right price. Released in 2021, rated mature. So if you had, to put a number of stars on this particular show, not a movie on this case, what do you think on the whole Cowboy Bebop has been rated as?
You see, I actually liked this adaptation, and I'm sad it didn't get a season 2. But if I were to give it a number rating, I am going to say 6.4.
6.4. Well, you'll be interested to find out that out of almost 44,000 people, the actual rating for the Cowboy Bebop show is 6.7. Jeff, you're straight off on the board with a single point. So close, I can feel the heat off of it.
Off to a good start. I love it. All right.
Off to a good start. So, next up, we have, released in 2006, filmed in Japan. Okay, this is not the American one. Japan.
All right.
We have the live action adaptation, Death Note, The Last Name. So this is a sequel. Picking up where the last one leaves off, Light joins the task force searching for Kira in an effort to avoid suspicion for himself and get rid of L. So this is not the first live action adaptation of Death Note in Japan. So it's apparently a sequel from the first movie, supposedly Death Note. So it was popular enough and good enough that they did it again. What do you think that star rating is?
Did it come to America, or was it strictly Japan?
That is an excellent question.
Because I think that would definitely affect the... Actually, I don't know if that would affect it. Well,
I'm sure it has been released in the U.S. I do not know if this has been dubbed or not.
So you're saying this is a sequel, but sequels usually don't always end well. They're usually pretty on the poor side. Depends. It's not always. But I am going to go more on the pessimistic route. I will say 5.9.
5.9. For the sequel Death Note movie from Japan, the actual rating is 7.2.
Ooh.
Which means, technically in the 1.5 point range. Jeff, you get another point.
Woo! Number one answer.
So you're 2 for 2 so far, man.
Hell yeah.
Releasing in 2019 with a PG-13 rating. This net movie is described as a deactivated cyborg is revived, but can't remember anything of her past and goes on a quest to find out who she is. We are talking about 2013's Alita Battle Angel. I believe Patrick H. Willems described this as a gonzo blockbuster.
I'm trying to remember what I heard about this movie.
And James Cameron was a writer for this film, and directed by Robert Rodriguez. So we got some names attached to this.
I'm just trying to remember, because I have heard what people have thought about this. I can't remember if they liked it or if they think this is a turd. I want to say this was more highly appreciated, so I'm going to say 7.1.
0.1. Well, Jeff, you might be disappointed to find out that out of almost 300,000 people, the actual rating on IMDb for Alita Battle Angel is 7.3. Man!
So close.
So damn close, but guess what? That is another point. You are 3 for 3 on getting within range, man.
Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling. I feel hot.
Alright. So we're going back to Japan for this one.
Okay.
Live action adaptation. They planned a sequel from the get-go, and you can tell it because of the title. We are going with Attack on Titan Part 1 from 2015. Description: in a world where giant humanoid titans prey on humans, Eren joins the Scouting Legion to get revenge on the monsters who killed everyone in his town. Now, I'm not good enough with names to recognize any of these, but I have been told that the man who was behind the Evangelion franchise actually did stop work on the Evangelion reboot films to help with some of the stuff on Attack on Titan. I believe he also worked on the Shin Godzilla thing, postponing actually finishing those movies. I could be wrong. I'm sure Dalton will let us know tomorrow. So, 2015's Attack on Titan Part 1. What do you think?
I know nothing about this. I mean, I know people love the anime. The movie adaptation, regardless if it was a success or a bomb, it had a sequel. I'm going to go 6.2.
6.2. I didn't mention that whether the sequel actually released or not, though. It's on the list. It's a real movie.
Okay. I think even if it didn't, I think it's like it made money, but not enough to actually develop the sequel, even though it was planned. But I stand by my 6.2.
You know, I would love to find out how many movies end with a not to be continued type thing, and no one ever makes another movie in it. I would love to know the actual number on that.
I'm sure it's a lot.
Probably uncomfortably high. So, 6.2, your guess for Attack on Titan Part 1, 2015. Actual rating, 16,000 people, 5.0. So, you were a little nicer to it than they were, but guess what? You still get the point. You were 4 from 4.
Yes. Let's just end it here. I don't want to ruin the streak.
But Jeff.
Oh no.
We have to do the obvious pick.
There are 2 obvious picks. Or 3.
With a PG rating, a 2-hour and 15-minute runtime. Directed by the Wachowskis. 2008's Speed Racer. What do you think the IMDb rating is? From 79,000 people who took time out of their busy day to share with the internet what they actually think about this movie.
I want to say this movie is very split. There's going to be a lot of people like me who just think that this movie is perfect, but then you'll get a lot of people that just say this movie is horseshit. It's a visual mess and all that. I am going to say this is a 5.4.
5.4. Well, according to the internet, and you kind of got to ask, are the people who really hate this going to go out of their way to share how much they hate it? Are the people who love this going to go out of their way to share how much they love it?
You don't know IMDb very well, do you?
Well, the question is which group is going to show up the most? And According to their Metascore, it's got a 37. I'm assuming that's out of 100. It's based on 504 reviews, 286 critical reviews.
Yeah.
But the real measure of a film's worth is its stars. 2008 Speed Racer received 6.1 stars. Jeff, you're 5 for 5 on points.
Yes! I'm actually glad to be wrong with that last one. That means more people love this movie.
They loved it more than you thought. Just like I did, my friend.
You're the point one.
If I had an IMDb account, I'd give it an extra star in there.
But that is fantastic, and 5 for 5. I will go to bed tonight very happy.
You can retire.
Yes.
No more quizzes. He has won quizzes.
I will retire from this podcast. You now need to find a new host. You have to find the new Jeff.
Fuck, I gotta remake a damn logo. I had t-shirts made.
No, everything's the same. You just have to convince someone that's like, hey, Dalton, you're the new Jeff.
Legally change your name. Knowing my luck, I would get a Jeff who spells it Geoff.
And I would actually come back and be like, okay, I'm out of retirement. There's no way some imposter is going to take over the show.
Oh.
But we do have a few questions that we would like to answer.
We did. And we'll go ahead and start from the top. So, we've talked them up a lot tonight. We'll get, I think we got 3 in a row from Dalton. So, starting off with the first one he submitted. So, he asks, are there other anime from the Speed Racer era that you enjoyed or would like to check out?
Are we talking about when it came out in the 60s, or are we talking about when it was introduced to America in the 90s? Because either...
I would assume it's, the original, 60s release in Japan, anime from that era.
Well, to be brutally honest, I can't quite answer this question because I didn't get into anime. I'm still really not a huge anime watcher, but I didn't really get into it until late in life. The only animes I watched, and is there actually a question? Well, actually, I guess we could kind of coincide it with another question Dalton asked. Are there other animes you like to cover on the show? I'd like to cover, Digimon, Cowboy Bebop, and Full Metal Jacket Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
I don't know, Full Metal Jacket Alchemist could be interesting.
They get Stanley Kubrick alive.
They're trying to bring back Arlie Ermy.
I'm in.
Sold. Deal, Howie.
Arlie Ermy is Fiora Bradley.
Oh. So,
but yeah, and if we're talking actual when it first released in the 60s, no.
The only other anime that I know of from the 60s, I think Lupin the Third was a 60s anime. And I want to say that Miyazaki, the guy who does the Studio Ghibli films that everyone loves so much, I think that was one of his earliest things. Or at least earlier. But, yeah, that's not really my era. Most of the oldest anime that I tend to gravitate towards and have still on my watch list are 80 stuff.
Yeah.
I think other than Speed Racer a few times to figure out that I didn't like it, the oldest anime that I've watched was, I think, the original Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam, the original. I think that was really late 70s, maybe super early 80s. I kind of like anime after it transitioned from that kind of grainier kind of feel to the more cleaner cell shading that I associate with late 80s, 90s anime.
Yeah.
But, tying in his third question with it like you did, as far as other anime I'd like to cover on the show, I do have a list, and, I just pull a couple of random ones off of my list. 8th MS Team was one that I really enjoyed from the Gundam universe. We could always talk about the best Dragon Ball series, GT, And another big fan favorite for me was like Tenchi Muyo. That was another one of those Toonami era ones that I really enjoyed. One of those harem animes that's just kind of dumb fun where the guy's oblivious to the fact that everyone wants to bone him, willfully or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Didn't they say GT, it was terrible, that they declared it non-canon?
Oh, they're liars. It's the best.
Well, looks like we need to get a guest on to see if your claims are true or if you're talking bullshit. But next question from Dalton. What is something you love that you think would make a fun anime? And the first thing that popped into my mind, just because I love this franchise so much, and at this point I would take anything that they would give us, I think a Star Fox anime would be fantastic. And they kind of did something to that as a promotion to introduce Star Fox Zero. They did a 15-minute animated short called "The Battle Begins," and it's in Japanese animation. And I think yes, it's like computer CG, but in that anime style, I think it looks fantastic.
Huh.
But I think that would be a fun anime that they should do.
That could be a fun one, and maybe just an actual way to do Star Fox justice for a change.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Nintendo's been shitting on that franchise a lot over the years.
They have been reduced to DLC, though there have been some people on the internet that are making some very good YouTube episodes, like A Fox in Space, or you have someone that has taken a engine and is still in the process of making a full-fledged Star Fox game called Star Fox Event Horizon.
Yeah, but how long will it stay out before he gets the cease and desist?
It's hard to say. I really can't answer that. They've been out for years, and there's still nothing yet. I just hope that Nintendo doesn't listen to this.
So, something I love to think of, make a fun anime. So anyone who's familiar with some of my appearances on Steam Machine probably will not be surprised that I'm bringing this one up. But I would love to see an anime adaptation and continuation. So pick up where this thing left off and keep going. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Keep the original soundtrack from the game. Get those voice actors back. Do the animation like, hell, it could look like One Punch Man. I don't give a shit. But I do want to add an extra idea in here.
All right.
Besides just the MGR. And if you've got an idea that you want to throw out for this too. So, he asked, what's something you love that would make a fun anime? Do you have any ideas that aren't something that already exists? Just like a vague concept you think would be a fun anime that may or may not already exist out there?
I really can't answer that just because I am so unfamiliar with anime. I could say something that's just like, oh yeah, they have like 4 different versions of that idea. It's just like, oh, well there you go.
Oh, I'm sure there's a version of the idea that I had for this. Because the first time I read the question, my first thought went to this, and then I reread it. I'm like, oh, something that you love. So, okay, what's something I really enjoy that would make a good anime? And I went back and rethought it. So, this is probably the only way this idea is ever going to see the light of day. So, I'm actually burning a tabletop RPG idea for this.
Alright. Okay.
And it's one that I've kind of thought about off and on for a couple years now. And, the best part of it is the initial setup game. Because the way I would do this would be, take this idea and apply it as an anime. So, what my idea was, get a group together, we're going to play an RPG, and pick a system agnostic one. So it doesn't really matter what genre you want to play. But instead of letting everyone make their characters together in one setting, do it individually. So they're like, okay, so what's the game setting? And tell everyone a different setting. So you got one dude who's making a barbarian for a epic fantasy RPG. You got somebody making an android for a weird sci-fi one. You got somebody making a bounty hunter for a western RPG. Someone's making a superhero.
Yeah.
So everyone's going in expecting a different game. And when you sit down, you have them, you're sitting around a table and let them kind of talk in character a bit. Savage Worlds has a great system for this where, like, tell us some, story of a great triumph you had. And they start going off on this idea they have for the backstory of their character. Everyone's like, what the fuck, goblins? You can't say Indians anymore, dude. What are you talking about? They're not, it's Native American. No, what? Spaceships. And wait until somebody is like, wait. What room are we in? And then that's whenever you start actually narrating. They're in a empty room that's nondescript. And they go out and then they start continuing on. And what the big twist for the story that I had out was this is all happening in some dude's head who's stroking out. So each big villain that is appropriate to one of the characters as they fight through the planned story arcs is like based on some traumatic event from this guy's life. And all of these people, these characters, are different facets of his personality. And it's kind of loosely based on some old John Cusack movie that I can't remember the name of. So I thought that just random RPG campaign idea would make a fun anime if they did it right. Because you could do the over-the-top stuff, you could have the genre mishmash, and with anime that doesn't really feel out of place because there's so much weird disjointed things in so many different anime to begin with.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, anyone who listens to this show, you don't get to play that game now because the big twist is already spoiled. But that's just one that I've always wanted to get to the table, never could, and I know it's the only way that I'm ever want to get it out where another human being besides me hears it.
Yeah.
So no original ideas for you?
No, nothing for me. I stated what I would love to be an anime, and frankly, I just wish that Nintendo would do something with it, because it's been since 2016 since they made a game, but the most recent thing they've done with it was a DLC for Starlink Battle for Atlas, I believe the game is called, but it's obviously strictly a Nintendo DLC. So that's all that Star Fox is right now, and that makes me sad. And I wish they would do something with it, and I think an anime would be perfect for it.
What about an anime about a guy who just wants to race?
We've got that. And they tried doing a modern, 90s radical interpretation of it, and it was shit.
I think I remember saying that there was a remake of that.
I think it was a Speed Racer the Next Generation. It's just nope.
Everything had a next generation. Degrassi, Star Trek.
One of those is good.
I didn't know you was a Degrassi fan.
Yeah, right? But next question from Kana. She says, what was the first anime you saw knowing it was Japanese animation? For me, it was Speed Racer. I knew it was something different, and it's just I don't know, this doesn't feel American to me. And then I learned it was Japanese animation. I was like, okay, that makes sense. What more do we have? Oh, Pokemon! Digimon!
Digimon does hold a warm place in my heart. I really like the actual digital pet things. Me and my buddies had those when we were in school.
I never did. I never had the, what was the other one? The Tamagotchis, or what were they?
Yeah, Tamagotchi was the other one. When we were kids, my wife had the Tamagotchi, I had the Digimon. And the big difference was you could actually hook the tops of the Digimon together and make them fight one another.
I think I remember seeing that in commercial. I think I remembered everyone's complaint about the Tamagotchi is they could never keep them alive.
Yeah, we ended up getting my daughter a Tamagotchi a while back. But I got to feeling nostalgic over the Digimon pets. And I looked, and right about the time, this couple years ago, that I was thinking about it, they had just released, or that they were still manufacturing, the 20th anniversary edition, where they took the first 5 versions of it, rolled them all up into one, so you could pick an egg and pick which generation of the Digimon that you wanted to raise, and you could have up to 2 at the same time. So I bought one for me, one for my brother, and one for my daughter. And we all were just playing with Digimon for about 2 months. And in the process of all that, I found out that somebody actually made a fan-made Digimon MMO where you can take your little virtual pet keychain and fight it online.
That's pretty cool.
And I've been trying to talk somebody into like getting a Digimon, and I even made this little board so I could hook the Digimon up to the computer. I can show you this. They don't get to see it at home.
Okay.
Yeah, I wired up the resistors and all that stuff, and I had to program this little board right here.
Yeah.
But I've got the spare parts to make like 5 of these laying around. And no one else is willing to go through the trouble of raising a fucking Digimon to try this stupid shit out. But back to Connor's question, I guess. I'm not sure. It's one of two. I know the first time I watched both of them, it was one of those cases of, this looks different. I'm not used to this look. I know that Dragon Ball Z was the first time that something really jumped out as, okay, this is really cool, but it doesn't look like animation I'm used to. Something's different. And the next one that I really got into, because encountering Dragon Ball Z eventually led me to Toonami on Cartoon Network. And the next show I got into was Tenchi Muyo. So right around in that time was when I realized, oh, I'm watching Japanese cartoons. This is anime. Mm-hmm. Before then, I know that I watched DBZ before that, but I don't know if I realized it was anime before or after I found my way to Toonami proper. So it was one of those two. And I guess we'll bring it on home with Adam.
Yep. The last question is, do you prefer games where you have to take your time and make measured decision or mindless action? And I'm more of measured decision. I'm slow and calculating. A game that requires me to be fast and make snap decisions, I'm very poor at it. My mind doesn't work that way anymore.
So, Adam, I love you, but I'm going to dispute the premise of the question. So, this implies that the spectrum is just slow, measured, and thoughtful on one end of the spectrum and mindless action on the other. I argue we're working with 2 axes. And you can tell me if this changes your answer. So I think you've got like a fast pace to slow pace on your X, and you have a like mindful, strategic, thoughtful versus mash buttons, go fast. Like just dumb, you're not thinking about it on the other end. So we kind of got more of a quadrant thing. So we got slow and thoughtful, slow and mindless, fast and thoughtful, fast and mindless. On that metric, I prefer games that are faster paced, that if you're not paying attention and really thinking about what you're doing, you're going to get fucked up. Like Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Rising, we talked about that earlier. Not quite as fast paced, but Elden Ring kind of falls in that category. Mm-hmm. And yeah, with the exception of Elden Ring, like you can put it on a lower difficulty, button mash your way through and kind of bluff it. But if you're playing on any real, like most of those games, like the character action games I really enjoy, the real game starts at hard mode. That's where they're really putting their effort in, and if you just go through trying to button mash on that, you're going to get wrecked.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn the systems, you've got to really think about what you're doing. So that's the type of game I prefer. So does that change you still want to stay, slow and mindless? Or not slow and mindless, but slow and thoughtful?
Definitely slow and thoughtful. I like to make... the games I play require me to make calculated decisions. I can't actually go in there, guns blazing. Otherwise, I'm going to be... Like, one of the games I play, as... And a lot of people might find it exciting, but SnowRunner, which is just a driving simulator game that requires you to make calculated decisions while driving off-road, because of snow, mud, the terrain. If you make a bad decision because your truck is ill-equipped, you're forced to start back at the beginning. You got to recover your vehicle, go back to your garage, and basically you just wasted time. So the game requires you to be slow and thoughtful with your decisions. So that's the only game that I probably play that requires fast I'm not going to say mindless, but fast button mashing decisions, and that's Hades.
Hades
is the only, maybe Doom, 2016, but even then I kind of played on a lower difficulty just because I know these aren't my kind of games. I mean, I love first-person shooters, but this is these are Twitch shooters? Is that what the
boomer
is?
shooters?
Boomer shooters. It's too fast-paced for me, and sometimes it's just like I can't keep up what the game wants me to do, so it's just Hades seems to be the only one that falls into that spectrum.
Well, I will say Doom 2016 versus Doom Eternal. You can run through Doom 2016 if you've got the reflexes with it and never use anything but the shotgun.
Yeah.
So that is like a viable option. Doom Eternal, they actually force you to weapon swap. They kind of restrict your ammo more. And the enemies definitely have weaknesses to certain weapons and resistances to most of the others. So you really do have to pick and choose and swap on the fly and pay attention to what's going on in Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
But flip side of that, though, I will say, put a board game in front of me, I want to go slow and thoughtful. I'm playing the really, really brain-burning games. That, you're sitting there staring at all the shit that you got laid out in front of you for like 10 minutes trying to figure out, alright, I gotta put this card, then this card, move that piece over there, that gives me this many cubes, and then, it's all about the cones and this, that, and the other. Really get that combo down and like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Everyone's like, it's been an hour, Dane. So I like the really slow-moving, brain-burning board games, but video games, I want to have to think, I want to have to know what I'm doing. I want to get punished when I fuck up, and I want it to move quick.
Yeah. Fair enough. And that is all the questions we have this week, or this episode.
That is.
So, as everyone knows, this was my pick, which means Dane, you have next pick.
Well,
and
funny thing about that pick, it's actually been on lock for a little bit, and comes hopefully with a little bit of a bonus. So, if all goes according to plan, hopefully we're going to be doing a crossover episode, or set of episodes, with the Steam Machine podcast. On our side, we're going to watch a movie. On their side, we're going to play a game. And the episode that we're going to be doing,
in tradition, because we are getting into the spooky season.
Yeah, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, we're watching Ridley Scott's Alien. And I do believe Dalton himself is going to be showing up on that. So
that's exciting.
Well, if it all goes well, we might be having our first guest appearance here.
That's very exciting.
And
that'll be two weeks from now. Do we want to spoil what we're doing for our crossover with them, or do we want to wait until they?
We won't steal their thunder just in case something happens. So, just in case. We'll have a backup episode if something happens and they wanted to delay for their next one. That way we can keep them back to back. We'll have some kind of filler for next week. But if all goes according to plan and stays on schedule, it should be, because they're doing Kakarot on their next episode next week. Then we'll have Alien, and then hopefully the crossover event, the game on theirs. So we'll let them make that announcement next week on Kakarot.
Pending schedule, we do have a plan, but we want to make sure everything falls into line.
There is no plan. We will have to make something up. There is no plan.
Fans, just so you know, this entire show has been bullshit. There has been no plan. We're just very good at convincing you.
There was no quiz. We didn't watch the shows. I've never seen Speed Racer the movie.
There were no questions. This is us just picking random people and then pulling these questions out of our asses.
There is no Jeff. I'm just really good at disguising my voice.
There is no Jeff, only Zool. But fans, that has been another episode of Dane and Jeff's Media Dump.
And since I keep forgetting to put the little outro blurb at the end that I recorded, and then forgot to render it in first time, I just post it. Didn't have time to get it done. We're going to do a little bit of house cleaning so we can get that out there. So this time, normally, the last few episodes, our theme song has been Phoenix Down by Nile The Nightmare. We had a different one this time. Jeff, what was the name of that theme song?
Moonpath by Nile The Nightmare.
Alright. Which means you've been listening to Dane and Jeff's Media It Up. We're a consenting partner huddled for warmth under the Steam Machine Podcast umbrella. Join us on Discord with us and our other entertaining degenerate friends at bit.ly/TSMP Discord, all capitals. A link to our theme song can be found at nilethenightmare.bandcamp.com or in the show notes. And I think that's all of our housekeeping, man.
Please listen to the Steam Machine Podcast. Also listen to the JRPG Report, where our friend Dalton and our friend Mikolov basically talk about the latest news in RPG, JRPG news that they... Wow, I'm butchering this. You get the idea. Whatever new news they get about JRPGs, they do an episode on it.
And also check out, is it We Played a Game, Mikolov's podcast? He does with Nefarious. Yeah, if you haven't given that a shot, that's also one of them hosts on TSMP. Check them out. Put on a good show. A little bit more professional than us. They are better at staying on track than me. Certainly.
Neither of us can. We're both very bad with ADHD.
I'm sorry, I was looking at a squirrel. What?
Oh, hey, a spider. But that has been another episode. Dane, do you have any final words to say to our fans? Our supposed fans?
Don't do school, drink your drugs, stay in milk.
Alright, everyone, take care.
Good night, folks.